want to tell you right now, like, there's no point in beating yourself up. We all have gaps, right, in our abilities and our skill sets. So it's actually more important that you recognize those gaps and then work to improve them. Hey there, welcome to Mac TV, where we of course believe that transformation from manager to leader is such a crucial one. And that's because true leaders, well, they change lives. So today's video, I'm going to be answering a question that I actually get quite a bit, which is, what is the difference between a manager and a leader? Now, before I get into the topic of the day, I just want to tell you something very important, which is that you gotta subscribe. Don't forget to hit on that subscribe button right now if you don't want to miss out on any other content that I share on this platform every single week. Okay, so let's get into it. So what is the difference between a manager and a leader? Well, first things first, I want to say that you actually do have to have a combination of both skills. So management skills and leadership skills are equally as important when it comes to effectively leading a team. Now, the reason why I scream from the mountaintops all the time the importance of that transition from manager to leader is because of the fact that we have so many managers that are operating in this space where they are lacking in leadership abilities or skills. And sadly, this is causing a lot of problems in the workplace. So this is why I stress the importance all the time. Now, as we're going through, the different characteristics and the differences, I'm sure you're going to be sitting there and thinking to yourself, ooh, I'm missing this, or this skill set isn't there. I want to tell you right now, like, there's no point in beating yourself up. We all have gaps, right, in our abilities and our skill sets. So it's actually more important that you recognize those gaps and then work to improve them. So I want to challenge you as I'm going through this, like, if you recognize there are some gaps, to just work on improving them, okay, rather than beating yourself up. There's no point in doing that. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'll say in terms of the difference between a manager and a leader is that a manager has a title, whereas a leader doesn't really have a title. Okay, so one has a title and one doesn't. So a manager will most likely have some sort of title that lets you know that they have some sort of authority, whereas a leader can literally be any single person on the team. It's like the leadership expert, or it's like Simon Sinek, a leadership expert, always says, right? Leadership is not a rank, it's a choice. It's you choosing to take care of the person to the right and to the left of you, which means that can literally be anybody. So the first thing I want you to remember is that a leader can literally be anybody, whereas a manager has a title which tells you that they have some sort of authority. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the characteristics of a manager, and then we'll move into the characteristics of a leader. So first things first, the communication style of a manager is typically to tell their people what to do. So for example, if there's maybe some sort of process or system change, usually the manager is the one that will, send an email update or maybe gather the people together in a team meeting to let them know that, at this date, this is what the change is going to be, and this is what is expected of you. So they usually just tell their people what's happening. The second thing is that a manager's focus is usually on the system. And we all know that in order to have a system, you have to have processes and tasks. So they spend a lot of their time on a day-to-day basis assigning tasks to people and looking for ways to improve processes, which is why they're always looking for compliance on the standards, and that's where, holding people accountable comes in. A manager also spends a lot of time tracking and then measuring data. And so a big part of this role is actually generating reports as well as analyzing reports. And the reason for that is because they're trying to figure out how to maximize outputs for the inputs that are coming in. So it really stems down to, how do I get as much as I possibly can for what I'm putting into it, right? It's maximizing productivity for efficiency's sake. Now, another thing is that managers typically, because of the fact that they're in the day-to-day, right, quite often, they are in reactionary mode a lot of times, which actually does put them at a disadvantage. So when you think manager, I want you to think like tactical. So you want to think budgets, schedules, strategic planning, resource allocation, all this stuff that's like very logical in nature. Okay, so now that we've talked about the characteristics of a manager, let's move on to the characteristics of a leader. So the first thing I'll say here is that a leader's thinking process is very different than that of a manager. So a leader typically thinks in terms of mission, vision, and purpose. So they will always start with why. Hey, that's from Simon Sinek. Anyways, they will literally always start with why. So why are we here? Why do we do what we do? Why do we exist? Why is this important? So they will start by literally thinking about the why, and then they will try and define that why and put it into action, right? So they will communicate that with their team and help each team member just really understand why we as a team do what we do, why it matters, so that team members understand why the work that they do really matters. And that typically creates energy, right? Because people like to know why they do what they do and why what they do actually matters. A leader as well is always striving to take their people from here on a mission to there, which is the vision, by means of motivating, inspiring, and influencing their people. So instead of control, what they actually choose instead is mentorship and empowerment. Leaders are also typically change agents just because of the fact that they're not really in the day-to-day or in the weeds, so they have time to be more proactive in nature. They make time to be proactive in nature, and so they are creating change and perhaps even taking some risks based on their hypothesis that might help their team get from here to there. Another characteristic of a leader is that they will typically model the behavior that they expect to see. So if there are company values or like team values or whatnot, they are the ones that will set the example by actually living those values before they expect it of their teammates or anybody else. And then lastly, and I think one of the most important things in terms of a characteristic of a leader is that they're not usually adverse to conflict. So they're willing to step in more uncomfortable situations and have the conversation with somebody, typically than a manager. Because of the fact, right, that they're on this mission to their vision, right? And so they know that in order for them as a team to make it to where they're going, everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction. And if there is somebody that's rowing in the wrong direction, they have to fix that, otherwise they won't get to where they're going. Typically speaking, they're a little bit more willing to rumble or to be in an uncomfortable situation and have that difficult conversation because they realize that it is for the greater good. A leader is very people-oriented, so you want to think clear communicator, transparent, transformational, and motivational when you think of a leader. So like I mentioned at the very beginning of the video, I think it's really important, particularly for a manager, to have both management and leadership capability, right? Because let's say you're a manager and you're really good on the management side and you know how to, assign tasks and, improve processes and all that stuff. That's great. But you're not going to get anywhere if you don't understand people and if you don't know how to influence and motivate people to do those tasks. Because after all, you're not working with robots, you're working with people. And people are emotional. So even though this is a place of work and work needs to get done, there needs to be an element of humanity that comes into the workplace. Otherwise, work will just not get done. So this is why I say it's really important for managers to develop leadership capabilities or skills. So that is it for today's video, guys, in terms of the differences between management skills as well as leadership skills. Now let me know in the comment section below which one you think you lean towards a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see what you got. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope that you found it valuable, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up as well as to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any other content that I share here on this platform only on Tuesday. So if you're a new manager or you're preparing for a leadership role, then I highly suggest that you download my new Manager Starter Kit. It's a downloadable interactive guide that will walk you through some of the critical elements of your new role. I promise you it'll help you kick ass in your new role. And if you're a new manager that has a ton of information, let's say, swirling around in your head and you're not entirely sure what the first couple steps are to take, then I highly suggest you check out my Team Success Guide. The Team Success Guide is actually designed in a way to help you take all that knowledge you have in your head and make practical application of it by doing the work. So I will put all of that good stuff in the description box below. I hope you have a great rest of the week, and don't forget to keep smiling. I'll see you in the next one.